that right there.
Top view?
A game view.
Game view. Here we go.
Yeah.
Think that should fix stuff. Cool.
Yes.
Now you guys can see that.
But yeah, definitely it fills a niche that nothing else is filling.
Okay.
And I can hear beautiful music playing.
Yes, it is.
Brian cannot hear any music.
It is a very pretty game that you don't need to be listening to. I would prefer it. It's very zen-like.
Yeah, it's kind of got, like, my wife, one of the reasons my wife likes Minecraft is because when the kids are playing it, the music is so relaxing that she actually...
It keeps everybody just sort of...
Yeah, kind of settled down and nice, and this has definitely got that effect.
As games about dying of starvation go, this is the most peaceful. There's a few games where you die from starvation, not least of which is Don't Starve.
Have you seen those horrible, exploitative game ads on Facebook that take video from Banished and try to sell an entirely different game?
There's a lot of them, and they always take weird snapshots of other weird games, and none of them are legal, but they make new ones fast enough that the old ones don't get taken down quickly.
It's weird. They always say, you can do anything you want is like the big tagline.
In this game that we didn't make.
At least here it's less disturbing than the ones where they show a scantily clad woman and say you can do anything you want. That one feels really icky.
And that's been since like Ebony way back when. There's been a long history of really uncomfortable game ads on Facebook. Anyway, we need to name our town where people will be banished to. How do you feel about Winifredon?
I think we should name it Zarnathium.
Can we spell? Can I actually go over there and just grab his name?
I don't know.
I might actually be able to just copy Zarnathium. I'm literally copying and pasting your name. It feels a little ooky, but that's okay. We're gonna see if it works.
Oh, no.
I'm hitting Control V and I'm just getting a V.
Poor Banished.
Trumbull.
Trumbull.
Do we want to call it Trumbull Valley?
Trumbull Valley. Call it Trumbull Valley.
Okay.
Trumbull Valley's way better. Yeah,
That's
Trumbull Valley. Sorry,
like
Zarnathium.
It's really familiar.
You got brief recognition there, but yeah, Trumbull Valley
So
wins.
close. Valleys or mountains?
Valleys, it seems like,
Valleys
would
are
make
easier.
sense, since it's Trumbull Valley.
I'm going to do a large ones that there's more dirt to care about.
I don't think I've ever done a large one. I think I've only done small ones.
I always do large just because there's more places to find, and so you get more interesting opportunities to build a city. I'm going to turn disasters off for now. I'll make it easy to start just so that we're not immediately dead before like the first season's out.
That sounds good.
That, I think we're good to go. So it's now going to generate us a little the geography, where the hills are, where they aren't, rocks, trees, iron, and rivers and lakes.
Nice.
So as games with world generation go, this one is not like it's no Dwarf Fortress. It's not seeding the world with history and tunnels, but it does a pretty good job of giving you a slightly different version of the problems you solve in this game every time you make a new map.
It's interesting how much of a difference having geometry problem, like the geography problems, to solve.
This is a game where people can get cold and die from cold based on how far they had to walk to work. And so having a wide open plain that doesn't require them to go through winding paths is actually incredibly valuable. So the first thing you do in Banished, and this is not to its credit, is open up all the UIs and put them where you want them to go. Because it's got a bunch of menus, and the menus do matter, but you kind of have to turn them all on and then decide where you want them to be. I have my habits, so I'll probably start there.
Some of these will be hiding behind our faces.
I think we're going to actually try and do a little bit of this so we can...
Nice.
I'm actually positioning the UI so you guys can see it. I'm just going to not have a lot of use in my bottom left corner of the map.
That is the most Twitch-friendly feature I've ever seen, and I love that now.
It's pretty amazing. kind of taking notes in my head a little bit. All right, so bunch of stuff already. So let's give you guys a quick overview of what's happening. This is my tiny starter town with my tiny starter community. I have a bunch of people. They have names, genders, a health, happiness, their current job, whether or not they've been educated, the quality of their clothing, their age, and the quality of what tools they've got. And they've got little inventories. This is probably the last time you will care about most of what I just said. It's there if you want to look at it. It doesn't affect you too much because you're mostly worried about the gestalt, like the whole community.
Kind of like Prison Architect is the same way, right? Like you can zoom in on the
data's there, but it's not like so important that you need to be learning all of it.
But that stuff is actually used by the simulation. Like it's not just fluff.
Oh, it's totally there. And you can even see, like, I'm going to look at this house. Here are the exact people living in this house. Here's the inventory that they have in their house. They will get that inventory from the storage barn or the stockpile. And then they will, since they're all in wooden houses, not stone houses, they will lose heat faster. So unlike some games like, I think Modern SimCity doesn't actually simulate individuals, it just gives you the idea of a person that has to go find a job every day. Yeah. This is actually simulating every individual member of your community and their current health status in a lot of different ways. So the first thing that we're probably going to do is clear some space. So I'm going to go down to the Removal and Destruction Tools panel. And then I think it's one of these is remove all... Yeah, so this is going to remove any useful resource to the town. So I'm just going to clear off this area. To start, you'll see right now I have 12 laborers. I think we can see that on the stream.
Yeah.
That means everybody is assigned to menial moving stuff around tasks, and I have nobody assigned to builder, farmer, herdsman, gatherer, fisherman, hunter, woodcutter, forester, herbalist, blacksmith, brewer, tailor, vendor, trader, miner, stonecutter, teacher, physician, or cleric yet. But in due time, we will. You sort of start at the top left and work your way down, depending on exactly what tasks you're doing. The first things we need to worry about in Banished are not running out of food when it gets cold, having warm clothing, having enough firewood.
So there's a seasonal cycle, right? So it's like
yes,
there's harvests you have to do.
If you look right up here, it says I'm currently in early spring of year 1. And harvest cycles are totally a thing. On a per field basis, you will decide when you want to start pulling in the harvest or if you should continue planting. And if you wait too long and there's an early frost, you lose a bunch of food.
And losing a lot of food could mean losing a lot of people.
It could kill, yeah, and you'll get weird die-offs where like a third of your community runs out of food and the rest doesn't, because that's the way the math works out. It's really, it's staggering in what I think is realism. I don't know if it's really.
They probably held a lottery and cannibalized a third of the community.
Just to see how people actually react.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna make some roads. Roads don't cost us anything but time, and right now we're still running it slow. I think we'll probably set everything to 10x because that's basically the only way I ever play this game is at 10x, and then you go in and out of pause. Because it's basically, you make your decisions and then you wait for stuff to go. So it's raining right now. That would actually help crops if we were growing. You'll see these people are taking down trees and collecting rocks because I told them all to clean up the immediate area. If I go over...
The rain sound is also soothing.
Much of this game is soothing. I'm going to offer a new stockpile so we can put the trees and rocks we collect somewhere new. This was a stockpile. I think it's almost out of room. So I'm guessing we'll see some stuff start to pile up in here pretty quick. Sadly, Chronatosis, I don't think people eat each other. They just kind of run out of other food that's not people and probably die. So you could probably, there's probably a mod for it somewhere if we check on the workshop.
The cannibalism mod.
Just to turn people into food. I've actually got a bunch of animals that I could take care of. You only get them on easy. What's up?
I would love to have like a Fallout skin on this. Like to have this be Brahmin. And
sure. Just like make all the trees look kind of radioactive and like neon green a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Wasteland, the dirt. Let's see. So I'm going to click on the food production button where I can make...
We could let you like scavenge from the ruins of society.
Oh, totally. We could just have more stuff be out there that's not rocks and iron and that actually have useful pieces.
Build like a Fallout shanty town.
Someone should make this game so we can play it for a couple hours one time.
Yeah, we're not making that one, but you know, I'll buy it.
I'd also buy it. So I'm going to make a pasture so that these animals don't die. You only start with animals on easy, and animals are incredibly useful and valuable. This is a game that will make you understand why in some third world countries a cow is like the most valuable piece of property a person owns. When you get to a trade post, sometimes you can sell off a cow for enough food to feed like 30 people for a month.
Oh wow.
So keeping the cow itself as a source of food is inherently wasteful, but it can be incredibly valuable in that way, and they will produce milk, which you can use regularly as a food source.
And that provides some variety to your diet,
yes,
right?
I think the health score up here is like the average for your whole community. And then the health scores of the individuals is based on their food variety. And so only ever feeding them wheat, for example, will eventually make them more susceptible to illness. Giving them a wide, varied diet will help them. This is actually a mechanic from like Caesar 4 or 3 if you ever played those games.
Really? Yeah, I've never played the Caesar games.
Those games are super cool. You would basically mark an area residential by placing the tier 1 house. And then if you met certain criteria, the house would automatically upgrade, which involved having like 15 different buildings or resources or food types available in a short radius. And so you made nobles move in by taking really good care of their exact environment and giving them everything they want.
Huh.
So this is getting built. In fact, if I click off of this, if I click onto... Let's see if I can get out of this view. Just escape? No. There we go. So now I can see that I need to remove trees. I've done all of that because there's 0 left to remove. I had to bring 32 logs over. I brought 32 logs. Now I need to actually build it. To do that, you'll see I now have 0 of 2 builders. That means I placed something, but I haven't actually assigned anybody to the builder job yet. So we'll put 2 people on the builder job, and they will quickly run over here and use the assembled resources.
So the second number is the demand. Like that's how much builders the game wants.
Yes,
right?
That's based on your current decisions. Here's the maximum amount we need to get your job done.
Well, now it's down to 0, so now you're wasting those 2 builders.
Right, so now I think they behave as laborers if they're currently in an unuseful position, but I'll put them back to laborers so we can track it.
Cool.
Also, we now have a pasture, and so now I should be able to say, keep cattle here. And now I suddenly have 1 demand for a herdsman. So I will set 1 person to be a herdsman, and they will now take care of these cows, and these cows will just produce some food. So that's nice. I think we've got enough.
So will he like go and grab all the cows and bring them into the pasture?
Actually, yeah. They will just naturally sort of be brought in. I think. I kind of want to watch and see exactly what it does now. One of my laborers died during childbirth because this is a game about a period in time where that was a thing. This is sort of like 1600s New England, I guess. Like, you left England because whatever religious choices you made they didn't like, and so you left to start over. Like, that actually has happened like 4 or 5 times in American history. Like, different communities seem to come over, dislike each other enough to start new towns, go one state up, and now we have a bunch of states.
See, I never actually figured out, like, where I thought this took place. So
this is super, obviously, for me at least.
Yeah.
It felt
You're actually from New England, and so I think you probably saw a lot of this stuff.
Well, I mean, I
not New England, but from nearby, New York, which is about the same kind of settling process.
Stories. I mean, my rule of thumb is if you go further north than New York City, you're basically in New England more than you're on, like, the East Coast at that point.
Yeah.
It's kind of got its own feel. So we're going to build at least one field because we're going to need more food. We started off with a pretty generous sum. We're already down to 3 digits. Let's make a nice big crop field up against this mountain. It's like a good point, and then I'm too large after 15 by 15, I think, so we'll make a max size one. For those of you who are potentially really good at this game, I am not making good decisions. I'm making decisions that let you see what the game is early. You probably would normally put a lot more time into clearing this out, making a nice road grid, planning out where all your stuff is going to go, but that's not fun to watch. So I'll just plop a field here.
And you're playing more the way I play anyway, and you're playing with my account, so it feels appropriate. You know, I'm just improvising as I go. I actually kind of, it's weird, even though I know I would benefit from planning out a lot more, like there's a certain amount of planning I'll do, I kind of like having to improvise with my past choices.
I do that too. That's how I play City Skylines, and you get much more organic Boston-shaped cities and much less perfect grids.
Yeah.
So now I've got my farm. I told it to plant potato. You'll notice I now have a demand for 4 farmers. You'll sometimes hear statistics that, like, once upon a time, something like 80% of the population had to grow food, so 20% of the population didn't.
Yeah.
That's a thing in this game. Like, 40 to 60% of your community will probably be busy feeding the rest. And there's something special about a game where having a blacksmith at all feels special because that person's not busy farming. Like, you kind of get that feeling of, like, we really are starting from nothing.
And it feels like there's sort of a theme among the games that you get interested in. It feels like where there's, like, it's exposing the truths of an industry or of a part of life.
You'll hear the phrase, the mechanics are the message.
Yeah.
And games that use their mechanics to help you understand a system in the real world are ones that I'm always a fan of because they tend to be really complicated in a good way, like they're nuanced, and they have a lot of interesting decisions to make, and there aren't obvious correct choices.
Yeah, and it doesn't feel like it's just sort of a random annoying complexity. It's complexity that you feel like, well, I'm actually learning something by absorbing this complexity. I'm not just learning how to play a game. I'm actually learning something about life. You know?
Or so we hope, right? And that really depends on how well the game maker did. So I planted a farm. I think I may have actually planted too late. It's already summer, and they weren't going to auto-plant it. So I'm going to have to make it up by hunter-gathering. And when I say hunter-gathering, I literally mean I will place something called a hunting lodge and something called a gathering hut. Because you will be a hunter-gatherer until you can get back to farming. You'll see this radius around the hunting cabin. If I can remember how to zoom out. That's the area in which it's going to look for food.
So I want if it overlaps too much city, right?
Correct. You want it to overlap as much trees as possible. And so you sort of have this very real, you need to use nature, you can't just burn it down because you'll run out of stuff pretty quick. So we'll put a hunting cabin at the very edge of this little hill over here. Doesn't look like much right now because I just plopped it, so like somewhere invisibly here, there it is a building footprint. You can kind of see it if we zoom in and look at the ground. It's like putting a shadow on the ground of where it's going to be, and I can see this little highlight selection. I think, am I paused right now? No, the rain actually stops under paused, which I like.
Oh, yeah.
You can kind of tell you're going or not. So we'll unpause. I've got too many laborers, so I'll put some more back into builders, and we'll have them over here. What are we running out of? We're running out of food, which we're talking about. Maybe I've already screwed up. We'll see. Gonna do a gatherer's hut right next to it. Actually, on the other side of the
It'll be really funny if we starve within 20 minutes.
It's happened to me more than once in this game. It's kind of funny how that works. Alright, so there you go.
So little arrows tell you where you want the road to be?
Yes, they are saying that is the side of this building that can overlap a road. And it's the side of the building that there's no road, the building will believe itself to be orphaned and will not work correctly.
Gotcha. So did your hunter cabin, was it on the road properly?
I think so, yeah. Okay, where we going? Oh, it's not raining anymore, so it's not as obvious that the world is moving. So there's a whole bunch of people.
They're building the road first, and then they're gonna...
I think they're like knocking down the resources they need to build it. Because they need to...
Okay, you're right, yeah, it's just barely...
So like, construction's starting, and you can actually see this little progress bar, I think, represents all of these steps combined in a very nice way. It's a way of saying, well, we need to remove these, bring these, do this. And this is just like,
and they kind of do all of it at once a little bit?
Like, yeah, they'll just sort of mass attack the problem. Let's see. So I'm also going to need...
We're down to 0 food!
We're probably actually going to have some people die off because we don't have enough food in storage right now.
I mean, oh...
Okay, they finished the hunter's cabin. That's good. So let's put 3 people onto that immediately. You can actually overstaff a building. I can tell it that it actually takes up to 4 now. And now there's demand for 4. And that fourth person will be less efficient, but still slightly more food will be gathered this way.
Sounds good. And then, okay. And then
So the gather hut is almost done. There's a lot of the same builders over there. You'll notice I now have too many builders.
Everyone's
Immediately stop.
starving.
Take all the builders back out. I will now put 4 people into gathering. And that place will now be busy. And then they will now be off to the races with trying to fill this place back up with food. The homes will have to fill themselves with individual inventories before the stockpile will kick back up. So that's all. It's all being simulated. You don't really have to think about it because it'll all just kind of figure itself out. And you'll notice I now have any food. I have 22.
Okay. Does that mean that all the houses have enough food?
No, that means that there's just food in the community at all.
Okay, gotcha.
But you'll notice that, like, this guy's got 133 potatoes in his house. This says 22. So this is stored food, which doesn't count what's in people's inventories.
Okay.
So I can look at all these houses, and they actually have, like, a few hundred food each. So I think we actually just nailed the timing. I think we started putting food back in the fridge right when everybody had taken food from the fridge.
Okay, nice.
Pull that analogy too far. We are going to need some warmth. Warmth is another thing that goes wrong in this game, so I will need a woodcutter.
Because if they run out of firewood.
Yes, then they will just die of cold in the winter.
And there's like different settings on that. Like you could like sustainably cut wood or not.
So I'll show you right now. The next thing I'm going to build is a forester lodge, which you kind of don't want to be by your hunting thing because they're going to knock the trees down that generate the deer.
Yeah.
But they do plant at an equivalent rate to what they tear down. So I could just knock down all these trees and suddenly get a bunch of wood. And sometimes you do need to, because you have a sudden demand for it and you can't fill the demand any faster, and so you might slash and burn. But if you have the luxury of time, what you want is to put a forester lodge up, which will responsibly farm the trees, and will actually replant, and over time, more trees will be in the area because of the forester lodge than if it was just naturally sitting there. Because he will try and fill in this entire yellow circle. You guys can see the yellow circle on the map again. So just for convenience sake, because I already have a road, I am going to put it over here. That way I don't have to build 2 roads. Actually, now that there's a huge hill there he can't even use, so I kind of want to make him further out. But now I have to build a path to it, because I'm optimizing against the environment a little bit. So let's get that side closest to town. We'll just plop it right there. I will now find it again by seeing where this little cursor turns red. On that axis, and on that axis. So that's going to be where that ends. And we'll go straight down, and we'll connect back up here. Another fun thing about this game...
Now you need builders again, right?
Yes, I will. Because I just dropped that. In fact, I need more builders than I have access to, which just means they will get it done just slower. If you start to see adults living with their parents, that's the game's way of telling you to build more houses. A crazy thing will happen in this game. So houses will fill up, and unless you put a new house in, young couples will not marry and have kids. They will just live with their parents as, like...
neckbeards.
Basically, I was trying to find a non-crappy way to say it, but there you go, your words. And they will not make any more kids, and eventually your whole community will literally die of old age, and nobody young will replace them. And I've had cases where I lost the game because I tried never expanding, and I just said, everybody go and died. And there was just no one left to do any jobs.
Just turned into a ghost town.
Like, the rate at which they could fill houses with kids was only at the rate at which people died and emptied out houses. So you kind of need to always be building a little bit to keep things stable, and so you get this built-in Roman Empire problem, where if you're not expanding, you're dying. And so the pressure is on you to sort of always be ready to handle a little bit of expansion. Not necessarily a lot.
Yeah, because you expand too fast, you can starve yourself.
Oh, that is the number one reason you screw up in this game is you expand it too fast.
Yeah.
You can build a town center, and if you build that town center, you can take nomads in. Nomads are the easiest way to die because they'll eat all your food faster than they can farm for more of it. So you have to plan around it and be really diligent with when you take people in and when you let them expand and not.
Because having nomads moved in is kind of like getting attacked by the Mongols. Like, a little bit.
I could make some very topical comments about refugees, but I won't. It's easier not to, and we're here to play video games today. So we have a house queued up to be built. They're going to finish on that Forester's Lodge first. Eventually. Then they're going to get to that. It's autumn now. So this crop field is ready for next year. I'll turn it back on when we get there. The woodcutter's ready to go, so now I have to assign somebody to that. And now we have our first proper, not enough people to do all the jobs. A lot of this game is solving for not having all the people you want. Because if you had enough people, getting the food for them would be really hard. And so you're always trying to make the most of a very limited community where everybody has to pull their weight.
And you just always feel like there's some trade-off you have to make. You never reach this point of equilibrium where, everything now works forever.
You can do it, but it might take like 5 or 6 hours of play on that map, and you won't have a very large base.
And even then, you got to be growing slightly. And it's like, there's no perfect equilibrium.
What I will try to do is expand my capacity for food much faster than I expand my capacity for people, and try and get like a 5,000 or 10,000 unit food stockpile so I can weather bad things happening, and then afford to expand in response. So we'll tone this back down to a max of 3 because we have any food in the bank. The Gatherer's Hut seems to be doing pretty well. I can actually click on the storage barn and see we have some venison, some mushrooms, some onions, some roots, and some berries. That's pretty good, actually. That's like a nice variety of food that will keep people's health up. Now, the first snow is falling.
I was going to ask, so the woodcutter, does he just turn wood into firewood, or does he have to go out to get the trees?
No, I believe...
The forester gets the trees?
The forester will be getting the trees.
Did
that building even finish yet? I don't think it
is.
Yeah,
that's why you still want... Oh, it's you're down to 2 builders needed, so I think
you can even see I have 241 stored logs, 125 stored firewood. This guy just takes stored logs and turns them into firewood. The stored logs are currently in the stockpile, because earlier, you'll notice, I cleared out my area.
Yeah.
That was twofold. That was to build room for buildings, but also to give myself a starting pile of resources to make stuff with. If you guys weren't watching me do this and trying to figure this stuff out on your own, and your first 3 communities die, that's totally normal. I lost a lot before I figured out how any of this game worked.
Yeah, same here. Taylor points out that the music to the game is really good, and Chronotosis is agreeing that
it is some of my favorite game music. I wish there was like a couple more tracks, because if you play this game for like 6 or 7 hours on a Sunday, for example, it will start to get a little bit repetitive.
Yeah.
But it's really great for what it is, and I'm kind of okay with the decision they made to make one really good track that might last a while, maybe versus a bunch of smaller tracks that weren't as good.
Yeah, Chronotosis points out that this is the calm music contributes to the sense that this is a calm game, even though actually under the surface it's crazy chaotic. It looks really calm though. It's kind of almost deceptive, right? And like how it,
it's this sort of like country life at its most basic. You're just trying to maintain any standard of living, any kind of like, no, we are self-sufficient as a community, right? And the game is largely about self-sufficiency.
And you notice that the health of your community is dropping right now, but that's inevitable, right? Because
that's probably because it's too cold and I didn't give them coats. I don't have a tailor yet. I don't have sheep.
But I was also imagining that even though like they start with their health at the max, they can't maintain it at max unless they have a variety of foods, right?
Correct. The game starts you off as if you had a better set of stuff as you did before. So if I look at that, I don't think it's going to tell me why his health is low, just that his health is low.
Yeah.
I think it'll usually tell you, okay, so his clothing is rated fair, which is better than, like, ragged. Actually, one of the next things I can do is I can build a tailor who will use the hides from the deer that we get at the hunting lodge, and he will turn them into coats, which will keep people warm. But the forester's lodge is also ready. And so now my 4 laborers might all have to turn into into foresters so that I can maintain a tree supply. Or
you'll run out of firewood and everyone will freeze to death.
Right. Or I could run this at like 2 or 3 and hope for the best, which is kind of what we're going to do.
What's that little...
So that's telling me that my storage max is reached. One way you can control what people are doing and try to maintain, basically without having to individually click on 1 billion buildings. Because at some point, you run into the end of the tech tree pretty quick in this game, and how some people expand is they just build more until they're filling the map and they have these 1,000-person impossible. I've seen videos online of people with like 10 quarries, and I've never had more than 2. And yeah, you can scale way up in this game. In the short term, these guys would actually turn back into laborers while their cap is reached. Because I want more wood.
So is that like a local storage cap for whatever that thing produces locally, or is it?
That's for everything that produces it. So here we have a screen called resource limits. It's actually saying I want to have no more than this in storage of any one resource at any point in time. I will up the limit to 400 because I want an excess, because it's early on in the game and I want to build up backup resource stockpiles, and that will allow those guys to go back to work. Currently I have 2 laborers. I think all my demand is met for everything else except for foresters. I'm going to need them to be builders, because what I'm about to do is drop that tailor we were talking about so we can keep people's health up, which I believe also keeps their efficiency up. I think health and education make you get stuff done faster. I can remember which one of these has the tailor in it. Roads and bridges, storage, markets, trade, town services, maybe? Hospital, schoolhouse. We will do schoolhouse eventually. I turned disasters off, so I don't think we need wells, but normally you would want wells in case fires come out. Here we go. Tailor. And these guys almost always wind up next to the wood chopper because that's around the same time you need them, and then before too long, we're going to need a blacksmith. I have 34 tools in storage. Tools break.
And if you're starting the game and you don't know you need tools,
you'll not realize you're slowly burning away. More importantly, to make more tools, you need a source of iron, which you can collect from the world until you run out of like iron on the surface. Like some of these rocks,
basically meteors,
are
right?
Iron. Yeah, just lots of meteor showers happened. No one ever came here. There you go. You theoretically might even need to build a mine to get the iron to give the blacksmith to make the tools. And if you start doing this when you run out of tools, you're going to have a bad time. By which I mean your community will die a very slow death of being unproductive, which is a weird way to go. It basically means nobody's getting anything done, and no food is showing up, and no coats are being...
Can they do jobs at all without tools? It's just slower?
I think it's either like 10% or 0. It's so low as to be effectively 0. And having said all of that, I'm going to build a blacksmith now, And I think we're going to have people collect specifically iron from areas where it's piling up. I think we had some up here that I was trying. Here we go. So all that's iron that we can collect. So I don't need to make a mine yet because I can harvest that. If I tell people to harvest all of this, my laborers will be busy for a long time. So I'm going to have them harvest a modest amount so that I have enough to get my first round of tools going without like invoking anybody.
You don't have a whole lot of control over the queuing of jobs. Like once jobs belong to a certain category, they all belong to that category, and the game sort of decides, well, you go get iron, you go do this, you go do that, and
there's actually a thing you can do. There's this little increased priority button.
Oh yeah.
I believe that they start off prioritized in the order you put them down, and that you can shuffle the priority by dragging this selection thing over stuff, and then any structures in the area will get increased in their priority relative to others.
Oh, interesting.
So it starts off roughly flat, erring towards the ones that you built the earliest, but you can override that with the increased priority button. It's confusing. It's not entirely clear to me. That system's
we just crossed over from late winter to early spring.
Yep,
just
so
like
now,
in real life.
That's exactly how that works. So now we can turn the farm on. And then, of course, now I need farmers, and I have, like, nobody. Oh, do I have my event log turned off? I would have been told when babies are born and when babies grow up old enough to be put to work. Child labor is not a thing in this era. People need to work as soon as they're able. But you can build a schoolhouse, which will have them get educated before they become laborers, and then they'll be more productive and get more work done over their whole lifetime.
But they won't immediately start working.
Correct. And so you're actually going to increase the lag time before you get more workers in exchange for higher quality workers. You can see over here, like, a child was born in late winter 1, and somebody became an adult and is now working as a laborer. And so I had a new laborer pop up. And so this is why you keep building new houses, because that's giving you the fixed but slow supply of new labor to keep the community up and running. And so it's very much like a game about dynamics and getting all these different pieces to come together. So now to fit my farm, I'm going to go down to one builder, because you can get by on one builder, it's just incredibly slow. We'll drop down one gatherer. I don't want to lose a hunter because they're needed for coats. But if I can go down to 2 gatherers, which is, well, I've already done 2 foresters, so yeah, I think we'll do 2 gatherers. And that should give me the 4 farmers I need, because the farmers are going to provide the bulk of my food. There we go. So they also won't pull anything out of the ground until like autumn, and so you need other stuff to keep you going until then. So you usually get the bulk of your food from farming, but you would supplement with hunters, gatherers, and we'll do some fishing too when we get there.
And milk, I imagine.
Yeah, milk is not a... you get so little milk from the cows versus other food sources that it's almost negligible. It's mostly for health and less for actual, like, other stuff.
Gotcha.
Since we have a river here, I can eventually...
It does a body good?
It literally does a body good, yes. Something drink a mug a day, I guess. I like milk. That's fine. So we've got the tailor is 1% complete. The blacksmith, for some reason, was being built sooner, but now I have a builder who's assigned to the tailor. So it's kind of a jumble there, but if I needed to tell it to build one over the other, I could. Right now, I think we're doing okay. Down to 30 tools, but I have enough iron, so that's nice. So as soon as this blacksmith is done, I can probably assign somebody to the building, and we will probably be okay on tools. 2 more people became adults. I have 2 more laborers, so hooray.
So once the harvest is done,
yes,
and you get into the winter, you get those laborers back. You can put them on other jobs temporarily.
I think they actually behave as laborers while the farm is not being used. If you wanted them to do other roles, you'd have to turn all your farmers off and then put them back into other things. The game kind of makes you want to do that. Like, you can play it lazy and just let them be laborers, but realistically, you'll do stuff like turn off all your farmers and make them go fish for the winter to keep your food stocks maximized, but that does require some micromanagement. I tend to do that, but it's kind of tedious, and I wish I didn't have to. Alright, so this guy has bumped up into his limit. He's not going to make any more firewood because the limit says 200. And we're in late spring, so it's not going to be that cold. But, just because we're early and it's good to have stockpiles, because eventually we will come back around, I'm going to crank that max up to 400 to let them work.
And it doesn't take any time to build a new stockpile, right? You just have to give up the land?
Yeah, stockpiles are instant. You're just assigning land to it. They may have to clear away trees. I think the land has to be clear first. So by now, I'm guessing we need another house, because you've got kids that could move out soon. You've got kids that want to move out soon. Maybe. Not quite.
It looks like there's a gap in your road. Am I just seeing things?
Where's that?
Right there.
You're right. There's like a one little tile that I somehow missed. There we go. Good eye. All right. So
I'm impressed that the road still worked.
People don't need roads. Roads just accelerate them, and they're doing pretty good pathfinding given roads as a tool. We can actually make roads out of stone if you need to make them faster, and if you get people that have commutes via foot that are long, that could be kind of treacherous in the winter, you might give them stone roads first to get them to work faster so they spend less time in the frigid cold.
Gotcha.
So with that, we're probably going to prop up another house. You can also build a boarding house, which is like sort of a huge motel.
Oh, wow.
Sort of a 1600s Motel 6 kind of deal.
Mostly to absorb giant piles of nomads?
Yes, actually. I think that's largely what it's for. Or if you're replacing a lot of houses with stone houses, you can rebuild a house into a stone house, which makes it consume less fuel to stay warm and warm the houses near it better. And while you do so, it moves people out, and you might put them in a boarding house. So I think this might have been a build that came to the game as a solution to those problems. I wouldn't recommend building it because it'll just let your place expand probably beyond what you want. You have more control over the expansion.
Can couples move in there and have babies in there?
I think lots of them can at once, which is kind of why you wouldn't want it, because you don't want to give people free reign to just fill a bunch of houses with new mouths to feed that the community can't afford to feed. So now I've got work for a tailor and work for a blacksmith. I've got one free laborer, I'm going to have to pull somebody else off something else to fill both jobs. The blacksmith is more necessary because we are treacherously low on tools and we're out of the winter already. So what I might actually do is turn the tailor off. I don't build it, but I will actually tell it not to work. That little stop sign means it's not going to work for now, and that will keep the demand from turning on. But once people get... the second I have another laborer, I will want to put them into the tailor to get the coats, to get a supply of coats that the whole community can use before we get to winter. This game is largely about being aware of what's coming next and planning or at least equipping yourself to deal with whatever you're going to have to face.
Which is what makes it, you basically assume you're going to lose your first game of it because it's all about that anticipation, right?
Yeah, well, this is kind of like Planet-based is very like Banished. I'm highly confident Banished came first in that respect. You have to be planning for things before they go wrong. You'll now notice I have a couple of cows outside the pasture because my pasture has a max of 4 cows. And so these cows will eventually run away or die off or something unless I build more pasture. But they're also very valuable and I can trade them away for a lot once I get high enough level and once we have enough developed infrastructure that I can afford to build and staff a trade port, which is a thing.
Yeah. It's, I love this, the fact that we're sort of confronting this idea that you have to build up this huge bottom of a pyramid to support a few pinnacle jobs at the top.
Right. And it's a very realistic distribution of labor given the technology level present in the game. So let's make this just the biggest pasture I can make.
Yeah, some red on there.
Yeah, so that's it's just bumping up against the corner. So we'll go 18 by 13. Somebody is probably about to tell me that that's not an efficient size because there are efficient and inefficient sizes based on some math that I know about but don't choose to care about today.
So you're explicitly leaving room for houses over there,
yes,
where the cow
I believe
is?
That's enough room for a house. So I'll double check that really quick.
Oh,
nope.
Maybe not.
Maybe not. That'll be enough room for one house.
There'll be room for more stockpile.
Yeah, actually, that's not terrible. Having a central location, that stuff is pretty useful. There's also mods that'll give you more buildings that'll sometimes let you rechange the way you solve problems. Like one of the things you can build is a market, which is kind of a late game thing. This basically collects all of the resources a house needs and then staffs somebody and has them have the job of distributing those resources.
Oh,
so people don't have to go and get their own food and such. They can just stay at work while their stuff is sort of taken care of.
So is it just like they have one trip instead of 5 trips?
Correct. You would go to the market instead of going to the stockpile and to this particular barn and to this other barn. Somebody basically keeps the market, because this is simulating everything in a real way, the market doing what it does in real life is an actual efficiency gain. But it's a late game thing because it's big and expensive. It has a huge area it affects. I don't have enough houses for this to matter. Some mods will give you corner stores, which behave like markets at small scale and are cheaper.
Is the idea for a market that you put the houses within its reach?
Yes.
Or do you put the resources?
I think the homes within its reach. Ideally the resources too, but they will go outside their reach to find the resources, but I do not believe that homes outside that radius will go.
Okay, guys, so whoever lives near the market will use the market instead of going for their own stuff.
Right. So you can prevent people from sometimes walking 5 miles to get dinner because that's the place that food is at right now.
Yeah. So yeah, you'll be watching your field and nobody's working there and you don't know why, but it's because they all have to desperately go and
get their food to bring it back home to their families for the families to eat.
Yeah.
So we'll put cattle in our new pasture.
I definitely know what it feels like to have family obligations to take care of that pull you away from your work.
Yeah. It's a little simpler in this game than real life, but that's the thing. So this will give us enough room for a lot of cows for the future,
awesome.
Which will help us with milk.
And they will breed the cows over time, right?
Yes. So that's why we have more. They will just reproduce until they fill the space, and then they will go outside the space. I think what actually happens is if you have a cow that doesn't have a place to go, it will automatically get slaughtered and turned into meat eventually. And so if I click over here, we may already have a little bit, maybe in what.
Or do you have to build a slaughterhouse or something?
Oh no, we have some.
Oh, okay.
So we have some beef. So if you have storage for 4 cows and then more than 4 cows exist, it will automatically slaughter the extra cows at some rate. Obviously.
Veal!
Let's never do that in a game. The morality of veal is
veal. Can we make Veal Simulator?
Go watch the South Park episode about veal. That's all there is to know about veal. It's terrible. Still tasty though, I'm torn. Alright, so the woodcutter is again full, and we're actually low on wood, so I'm going to leave him capped. I'll actually turn the woodcutter off for a second. This is another thing you can choose to do. I can turn this off and reallocate my woodworker to somewhere else, or I can leave him there with the storage cap met, in which case I believe he either behaves as a laborer or does nothing. And so this game is always sort of threatening to make you feel the need to micromanage. Also, you'll notice that I'm back up to 50 tools because I have a blacksmith. But now we're in early autumn, and I don't have any more laborers, so what I'll probably wind up doing is I will close down one of these two, and then I'll put that person towards the tailor. What do you think? Tools or firewood? Which is more important right now?
Because you said you're running low on wood, right? Like you
we're
really want...
No, we're running low on unchopped logs because we turned them all into firewood. We have 431 firewood, and I have no...
I would say that tools decrease at a steady rate, but you actually will be burning firewood this winter, so I'd say turn off the tools.
Okay, so we will lock up the blacksmith, we will open up the doors to the tailor. I'll actually get that guy has a question mark above his head because that was my blacksmith. He's now assigned to a job for which there's no demand, so he's confused. Okay. So we will unhire him there and rehire him as a tailor, and that'll be that. Well, actually, I can up the limit on this a little bit.
Hey, that trooper, welcome to the stream. I don't think I recognize your name. I don't think I've seen you before. So thanks for being here.
And yes, there's probably a mod that adds that. There's a lot of mods for this game. It's actually surprisingly well supported. It's got a nice, vibrant community, lots of cool art assets, lots of neat little functional things that don't break the simulation. A lot of players have sort of been inspired by the balance of the natural game and tried to follow along with it, which is cool to see.
Yeah, you kind of expect that when people are adding something to a game, a lot of times they're doing it because they want to be OP.
Yeah, and there's totally mods that will just break the game for you, but there's other mods which are saying, we took the same efficiency ratios and used them to make a smaller thing. So, first frost in late autumn. It happens. We managed to get 98% of the yield from this farm.
And you still can save some of these plants, too. Just, they'll start dying quickly.
They will. But the fact is we harvested almost all of them. That was actually a very efficient use of our farm. So now our farm is done for a while. And so I will actually... I will stop working it. I will take them off of farming. A ton of laborers now, and some extra builders. So now we can staff back up everything else for a little while. So we can have enough herdsmen, have enough gatherers. We can turn up the foresters because our tree supply is low. I'm actually going to leave a few of them as laborers. And yes, Trooper, this is not quickly because it is a person, I believe, but this game is always getting live updates with new stuff in it. A lot of bug fixes, a lot of port stuff. I believe it works on Mac now, but that might not be the case. I think he talked about it.
There's not,
so that kind of support is
there's not really a great way for you to get this working on console. I don't imagine it going
the interface is not one that I would expect would translate easily to it, and so if you chose to...
Everything is so tiny, like even an iPad probably could not do this.
Well, you couldn't do it well.
Yeah. You'd have to have big, massive interface elements coming in to accommodate your big, fat fingers.
And all of these tiny little numbers and tiny little boxes. Yeah. So if you guys haven't thought about this before, iPads are generally capable of delivering experiences beyond what the player base on an iPad will want. And so you could make a strategy game like this, but I don't think you're going to find people who want to play this game on that device. And if I'm wrong, I'm happy to be wrong.
Yeah, I would love to have a game like this.
Yes.
Doing this kind of thing.
That's designed for that, but there's such a small audience for it. Oh well.
Yeah, and some of my favorite games on iPad were games that came from the PC. I mean, like XCOM and FTL were probably the games I played the most.
FTL held up really well on iPad. I was really
surprisingly so. They came up with some really clever UX things to make it work.
Hearthstone actually stole from them.
Oh, yeah, you know what? Hearthstone. That's another one that I played on iPad.
Because FTL had the whole, like, here's a representation of the menu, and we'll just shrink it down while it's not important. And Hearthstone did the same thing with your hand. Normally, it would have been this huge thing taking up the bottom of the screen, and they basically let you switch focus, which was larger on the screen. That's actually represented really well by my hands. FTL and Hearthstone both use the same UX trick, but I don't know if you could do that just because the amount of numbers you have to care about in this game.
Yeah.
So where are we? So we've got 1,200 food now.
Maybe the iPad Pro is what it's for.
If you can make games for just the iPad Pro and still pay your workers, kudos.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah. All right, so let's see. So we've got this house now. We've got a couple people living in there. This is a world in which an 11-year-old and a 14-year-old will go move into a house together and start a family.
Oh, yuck.
It's gross to us today, but people talk about how that standard changed over time because people died earlier, because people got to go to work earlier.
Oh, so yeah, no, I get it.
It's still inherently gross.
It's accurate, but it's so gross.
It's inherently gross, but I will give it points for being, like, periodically representative. Because if you need people to work as soon as their hands can work, because otherwise everybody dies, like that's
you kind of forgive some weirdness.
That's where that comes from, I think, where it came from once. So with that in mind, I think we're going to build a couple more houses because I think we're expanding.
Yeah, I guess so.
So winter's also a good time to build because your farmers are not busy. I feel like I turned off one of my panels and didn't mean to. Nope, not that one.
Oh yeah, it's your worker panel.
Not that one. That one. Okay.
there.
So I've got 3 laborers. I'm going to put 2 of you as builders because I want the other one to keep chopping away at these trees. I'm going to eventually build into this space, so I'm going to start having this laborer clear it out now, which will also fill up my stockpile with extra resources, which is good because my forester was capped at 2 foresters, so he couldn't actually keep my wood supply up. So I will bolster it in the short term by burning out some of the local resources that I was going to have to kill anyway.
Works. So I love that feeling actually when you clear a space, you just suddenly get a ton of resources. I feel rich for a little while.
I mean, you kind of are, and if for what it's worth, you could do that, right? If you did a large map, you could just sweep your way through it.
Just when you clear cut the whole thing,
and you'd have a ton of stuff, but you would leave behind communities that are unable to support themselves. And so it's better to, like, in a very real way, you mechanically have to work with the world to survive, because if you work against it, it can't come back. So we have 53 coats for 29 people. I think we're good on coats for now. And the winter is about over. We're now into early spring. We're still good on firewood. The timber's still okay. Tools are down to 42. People still do need firewood and coats at least for the next season, so we'll probably leave those as they are. But now we have to go back to the farm.
Is there a progression that you go to where it's like you have to get like a better quality of tool or a better?
You can get better quality tools and better quality coats. Better quality coats require leather and wool. Wool requires that you have sheep. And that you maintain sheep, that you maintain a lot of sheep to make enough good coats.
And getting your first sheep is tough, right?
You might need a trading post, because you can't get new animals or seeds without going through a trading post. So the game gives you some random ones to start, and then that's it. So you go with that.
Could you start with sheep randomly, and then you've got a potential wool economy?
Perhaps. I'm not sure if the first animals are always
your settlers happen to be from Wales, and so
there you go. Sheep. Maybe you brought the sheep, and then you could even make.
You guys are clearly Irish because you brought potatoes.
Or we just found some potatoes. We have potatoes and beans, so I picked potatoes.
Gotcha.
So I'm going to turn my farm back on, and now I have to restaff it, so all of my extra workers have to go back to being a little bit underworked or understaffed. That gives me 3 laborers. I'll take 1 more off a forester, and then it'll give me back my farm. Let's see. I might even take somebody else off.
And at some point, you're going to need to plant your beans, right? And
I don't have to. I could live on it because I'm also hunting and gathering. I have enough food diversity, but I could have more potato fields. I don't have just enough seeds for 1 potato field. I have access to potatoes, and so I could make infinite potato fields if I had infinite people to work.
I just mean you're going to want at some point you're going to want another field.
Yes, and just to support the community, I will make probably a bean field just to get the diversity in there. But I don't know if we have enough people for that yet. In fact, one of the next things I think we want is a school, because we're getting to the point where we might be able to use it.
Do you usually make these decisions based on just watching these numbers go up and down each year? Like, if you start seeming like you don't have enough of a surplus at the end of the winter,
to prepare for it. Yeah, you are sort of the town manager, mayor, local authority figure, and it's up to you and your gut to decide what the community needs to build and when to avoid disaster. Okay. So here's the thing. If you're playing this game well, it is very Zen-like, because things aren't going wrong and you're just constantly feeling like you're productive. If you're screwing up, it feels scary as hell. Because people are actively dying, or they're cold, or they have no food, and they're trying to run away, and they're gathering for their own resources because there's nothing else around. They're like, oh, what have I done? But when you're doing well, the music is perfectly appropriate. Yeah, there's no, like, sudden colony disappearance music. It's all just the nice, happy music. So build some more roads in here just because you can, and then.
So if your roads are, you can't build them up a hill or something like that. Like
you can build tunnels under hills.
But that's, I imagine, very expensive.
Yes, it requires a lot of stone.
Does it have to be straight under the hill?
Yes, it does. You can't do sideways. It's one of these. It's going to be under roads. Here we go. This is the tunnel thing. So it's like 4 stone per length. So if I wanted to go straight through here, I should be able to.
You could, but you probably don't have the resources, right? So
actually, there's also like there's some restrictions on where that one work. So yeah, it'll turn green on the other side if it was viable. So you've got to find a flat entrance point. You can't build it diagonally in most of the time.
Gotcha.
Like that wouldn't work. But this one's flat on this side. Eventually, it might actually pop out okay. Yeah. So if I really wanted to, I could spend 380 stone to build a highway under a mountain.
Oh, and it does, and it doesn't check in advance to see if you have the stone. It'll just start the project.
Correct. And the project will sit and wait until the stone shows up, and it might actually be a long construction time. Which is kind of nice the way that the game works that way.
Yeah, like a lot of times, like group communities in this era would start a cathedral, and then 3 generations later
finish it. I've actually had that happen with cathedrals, especially because they take a ton of resources to build. So we're going to build a schoolhouse next. The pre-placed houses had space between them, which is an interesting decision that I might not have made, but we'll work with it. We will put in our schoolhouse right here, and that gives me just enough room for a road, so that the schoolhouse can be just behind this house, and then I think that'll leave us with enough room to build other stuff there in the future. And that'll be where our schoolhouse goes, and I think if I can't fit a house right here, I'll be able to tuck one in back here, and then we can just sort of make that work that way.
Nudge the road, yeah.
Yeah, you do a lot of that. You sort of build into mountains to keep things tight.
I like it when it kind of constrains you to not... You could potentially do the exact same layout every single time you play, except that the geography forces you to improvise.
You're right. You're almost always solving for the little valleys you get. And for what it's worth, wide, flat spaces without trees are themselves a luxury resource.
Yeah,
right? Like, I could try coming over here and moving here just because this is a bunch of flat area. I'd have to build some bridges to make it easily traversable, but the lack of mountains is nice. But the game started me nestled against this hill, which might actually be useful because when I want to build mines, they have to be into mountains.
So you can do one that's close to home instead of having to stretch all the way across
and you
the
get to a point where once you've got enough people and enough sort of resource capability, you'll build your own mine, you build your own quarry, and you'll start pulling stone and iron out of the earth instead of from surface resources.
Do you start putting houses near distant things so that people can live by there?
Yep.
Does that work out pretty well?
Sometimes the game will automatically decide who lives where and who gets what job. When you first build the house, people might move to it if they have that job, but if that person gets old and then dies, the person who moves into that house might just be somebody who needed the house, not somebody who has that job. Sometimes you can manipulate the exact profession allocation, and you'll get more people living in houses which are correct for them because it will reallocate their living domains based on their work when you do that. So I would like that to be better and more automatic because it can make things better and you can make it work, but it's really tedious to do it. But it feels really cool to build like a long road from here, and I can actually do this. We could extend this road further out. I could build a little fishing lodge right here,
there you go.
and like 2 houses and a stockpile and a barn by that little fishing community.
And if you don't put the stockpile there, those people
They'll have to walk
all the way back
here,
to get things.
Which a market might help, actually. If I built the market at the very edge of town, and then the edge of town barely included the houses for that fishing thing, I could split the difference.
That makes sense.
I also like some of the mods that give you trade posts and corner stores because they are smaller markets, which help with exactly that. I use them for little pods, and the coolest thing about one of the coolest things that comes from this game's dynamic is that if I built a little fishing outpost, it might naturally grow into its own town, the way they do in real life, because that's how towns happen.
That's true,
right?
yeah.
If somebody has any reason to live there, and if people continue to have reasons to be around that area, over time a town will come, which is always awesome. So I think I've just got the one builder right now. I don't seem to be working on the schoolhouse yet. I wonder if I can actually find my builder. Yes, so here's the one person who's building. She's currently picking up resources. So I guess we didn't have enough of something. We don't have any coal, which is okay. We don't have any medicine right now. I turned disasters off. I don't know if that turns off sickness. Sickness is a thing that can happen, but happens incredibly rarely. I can build an herbalist who will find herbs and use them to treat sicknesses. I think that also increases their health. It's basically this game's version of vitamins. You put an herbalist out into the woods, sometimes, often, paired up with either the Forester Lodge or the Hunting Cabin or the Gatherer's Hut, because all of those buildings want there to be lots of trees.
So when you first started this community, you chose valley instead of mountain.
Yes.
Am I encouraging because we were saying Trumbull Valley, but the if you had chosen mountain, you would have had a lot less open space. Is that how that works?
I would have had less open space. These would be taller. I'd be less able to build into them or against them, and I've had just less usable land over the course of the entire map. Because more of it would be mountainous. But it might be more exciting to play on. It really depends on the experience you want and the flavor of the community you want to build. Where do they get their food? How do they thrive? If you get far enough, they might have exports, and different kinds of communities that have different competencies will have different kinds of exports. There's a lot of stuff I like.
So, what value do the rivers have? You said fishing.
Fishing
said
and trade. Fishing and trading are the big ones. Yes.
Is that it?
I think so.
Is it? Do they use them for fires if they don't have a well?
Maybe. I've never actually had a fire happen in this game.
Me neither.
I know you can build wells, and I've had disasters on before, and I've had tornadoes happen, but I've never had a fire happen. Maybe I'm doing something.
I'm glad they're uncommon enough that it's not an automatic thing like, 9 disasters happened in this game.
Yeah, this isn't like SimCity 2000 where every 2 months the scheduled bad thing of the week will happen.
Yeah.
Bad thing of the 2-month cycle, I guess. Alright, so 4 new laborers have happened, which is nice. Let's put some into builders because the schoolhouse is taking longer than it should. Even though I have enough logs, I have enough stone, and I have enough iron, and I have a builder. Do I have something else queued up? Oh, you know what? They're building these houses first, for some reason. And yes, Taylor, the SimCity disasters were a lot of fun, especially the giant, adorable robot that walked through town blowing it up, which later got added to The Sims as a janitor bot. Basically,
was
the same art.
robot?
It was the same robot with modernized art. It was a great little SimCity reference.
That's awesome.
And I think that the UFO shows up in one of the Sims games too, somewhere.
Probably, yeah.
It's like an old school Maxis humor.
I know you can get abducted by aliens and you'll come back. Like, that's the only way that men can get pregnant in The Sims, is that they come back from being abducted by aliens.
That's awesome. I didn't know that.
I think they have a little alien baby.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. I've
Yeah.
never seen that happen.
I don't know if it's happened to me. I think it might have happened to me one time.
Oh, no, saying Sims 2.
Sims 2.
There you go.
Yeah,
Apparently that's where this happened.
But yeah, I think that was there was. Oh, I know what it was. They had a pre-built family that had already just happened.
Oh, I see.
So that's what I played through, I think. Because I worked on The Sims 2 for PSP, and we drew a lot of our stuff from Strangetown, which is the town where that stuff happened in Sims 2, and so
Gotcha.
I had to play all that stuff to.
Oh, was that how it worked? Like you'd have to choose a town to allow those events to occur. So it was like
I think Strangetown. I think all the events could occur anywhere, but Strangetown was where they queued it all up to make it obvious how it all worked.
Gotcha.
So that because that's one of the trouble. Like you can come up with really clever in a big simulated game.
Yeah.
You can come up with big clever things that you want to have happen sometimes. But unless you make them happen, people won't even realize that value is there in your game. And
Yep.
so
It's tough to put secrets in your game and feel like you made the right decision sometimes because most players won't find them, and so you kind of have to make them obvious. Otherwise, you're wasting your work. But if you make them too obvious, they're not fun secrets. And so striking that balance is something we spend a lot of time on. Also, apparently, Milo's an alien baby.
yeah, they're suggesting that my baby is an alien, which I wouldn't. Certainly, my son has been very different to raise it than my other children. He's much more chaotic and runs around. He's obsessed with our fridge lately. Is the thing. So it's like anytime no one's looking at him, he gets in the fridge, and so the door is.
I know adults like that though.
Yeah, well,
That might just be a personality.
it could be. No, he could be that he watches me going and collecting Toll House cookies from the freezer every 5 minutes, and he thinks that that's what men
Jeffrey
do.
is secretly powered by cookies, guys. That's the only food he actually eats. It's just cookies.
But it's like we'll just sometimes I'll hear him go ma ma ma, and like what's going on? What's your problem? And I go in there and he's just standing inside the fridge and can't figure out how to step down again.
See, that's happened with me with my cats.
They
Get inside the fridge and they're not really sure what to do.
Kale, our producer, I think his wife posted a video of a cat clawing and eating his hair from behind, like jumping up on his. And I was like, that is also something that Milo does. I think that our baby is basically a cat
For now. So you can see, so we also barely made it on the harvest this time.
Oh,
we got
yeah.
Up to 1,500 food. We have more people now. We have 23 adults, no students yet because we haven't built the school yet, and 12 children. So, harvest is done. We'll turn off the farm for now. I will deallocate my 4 farmers.
So the fact that they barely made it, does that make you feel like what? Like you need to...
That means we are currently precise with our resource allocation, and that we will soon have maybe less than we need. You're always in motion. Nothing ever stays the same level of efficiency, the same level of capability. You're always moving around, and so you kind of want to plan for what's next at every step. So now we've got, like take a look here. Like we've got a little bustling 1600s town now. I should have rotated this house.
This is one of my. They don't quite match, do they? But one of my favorite things. This is one of those games where you can just sort of zoom out and look at what you've built,
Or zoom in and look at what you built.
But I just sort of have this sense of satisfaction. It's like, oh, when this started, it was just this tiny little square.
Yeah, it was
but
just this.
Now I've spread out and conquered.
This game will give you lots of that if you give it time to do so.
Yeah.
So I mean, now we've got a main street where a blacksmith, a tailor, a woodcutter live. We've got the storage barn there. We've got the town stockpiles of wood and stone and coal. A couple people live on it. We've got further houses down the way. There's a school coming up behind somebody's backyard. Actually, I should probably build a graveyard soon because people get sad when others die unless there's a graveyard.
Unless it can properly mourn.
It's a really simple. I actually like it as a mechanic.
And it can get filled, right?
Yeah,
so you have to build more.
You have to build a big one so that it doesn't fill up too fast. Which again, something.
You can start recycling graves. Just once somebody's forgotten someone.
I think eventually they will decompose, but I don't know what the timelines are like on that. So the question of where to put a graveyard is always tough because they're big, and you don't want them to be too close to town, but making them too far is a little dangerous, and you have to clear space you might be able to harvest.
Yeah.
So generally you do kind of want the graveyard to be a little bit out of the way, but not too out of the way. But I also know that this is going to become a big part of our town in the future, right? This is my sort of site where I plan to have more farms and such, and actually I should probably make a road there now so I don't accidentally go.
The question is, can you? Have you boxed yourself in
I've
so you
already
can't?
painted myself in a corner. So here's the thing. People can and will walk over this farm. They're not locked to roads, they just prefer them.
So you could just start a new road on the other side of the farm.
And it'll
that
actually
would
be okay. It's not obvious, but yes, that's actually reasonable. So I can start like Main Street V2 going this way along that farm. And then I could even say that this is going to be the next center thrust of the next part of town.
We should say hi to Timisk, by the way, who just showed up. Even though we're going to be done in a couple of minutes, and so
we're still grateful for your presence.
Yeah, we're glad you showed up for this part of it.
Yeah. I think you can actually see these are all the little herbs the herbalist would collect. I took all the trees down, so.
Oh yeah, so trees went down,
see them now.
iron went down, stone went down, but we don't have an herbalist, and so the herbs didn't get taken.
But I can still do a remove all resources, and that will get them to be collected.
Gotcha.
So we'll tell it to do that. We have our next little road coming up.
And so we can see a little preview of the future of this town, even though we're gonna wrap it down.
So Timisk, this has been out of early access for a while, but they are still actively working on it. So it might feel like it's in early access in that the guy just keeps making stuff and mods keep showing up.
Yeah.
All of which is awesome, and all those people deserve your congratulations, your thanks, your likes, your positive reviews on Steam. Like, go let them know they're doing a good thing, because they are of their own free will making a good game better. And that person has no food. Let's find out why. Brienne is finding food. So you know why? She got far enough away that she was hungry for long enough that she got flagged as hungry, even though there's food in town. Which is why you have to work. You don't want to make your town too spread out, especially in the winter.
So eventually you're going to want to have, a stockpile over there that can collect food so she can go get it if she wants it.
You have to have you have to have these little, like, this is a whole set of infrastructure to get this stuff to stay stocked and maintained, and you have to replicate that whole, like, network in another pocket to make it safe for people to occupy it.
So you end up sort of making not really just one town, but like a network of towns.
You have an overlap. Yeah, you have town, like, much like in real life. You don't get, like, here is a city, it is done. Here's a bunch of nothing.
Yeah.
Here is another city which pops up and stops. No, you get like a lot of development and a little bit, and then a lot of development and then a little bit, but you never get to zero because people need to stay warm and fed.
Yeah.
Which is very unique amongst the city builders, that there's actually a sort of economy of space and an economy of distance. So I actually had somebody somewhere is cold. That is this person. Where are they?
I like that you've got some kind of like sixth sense about it. Like you're the mayor. You're like someone was cold.
So I don't know how this person got out. They're probably gonna die.
Like, what are you doing there?
They went. I think we're over here somewhere. Yeah. So they like went down the river and just kept going for some reason.
Pathfinding bug. Like they thought they could get across the river by going down it.
There's probably a reason they went. I don't know what it is.
Oh, did you tell them to gather something on the other side of the river?
Maybe by accident. That could have happened.
And then so maybe this guy's like, oh, if I keep walking this way.
Yeah, I guess. So what are you currently set to do? You are a builder.
Oh,
so I'm going to turn all my builders off. So now you'll go home. And then I'll reassign 4 people to being builders, and hopefully... So yeah, that command seems to have somehow fixed it. That person is now walking home.
Okay, wow. That's crazy.
Oh, someone is saying I did, in fact, assign some task somewhere else. So you can actually cancel the gathering of resources with this thing, which you actually use sometimes at all, which is kind of inherently impressive. Let's make sure nobody's trying to get anything on the other side of this river. Alternatively, we could bridge it. And bridging it is not going to be that expensive because it's a small one. So it'll require 6 stone and 24 wood. Sure, let's just do it. That way, if we need to, we can follow deer over there and such. And because I already have a bunch of builders...
deer, by the way.
Yeah. They are not going to stay there for long because I took away their trees, but my hunters might find them when they move north. How are we doing? Tools are low. How are we on time?
I think we should probably wrap up.
Okay.
I think we're about done. But thank you, everybody, for being here. And thank you, Brian, for showing us this game. There's definitely, I could have come in here and tried to play it, and it would have been me fumbling around trying to figure out what the crap was going on again. But having you here to show us through it has been really helpful. So
yeah, it's another game I'm happy to endorse. Check it out on Steam. If you like what you saw here today, buy it, support the developers, check out the workshop, play some mods. Maybe, I don't know, go to the Undead Labs forums and post your failed cities in a general chat. We can all talk about the way our cities died, because I've got some of those too.
That's cool.
But yeah, I'm always happy to talk about this one and any game like it. Thank you guys all for coming. We're glad you joined us for the show.
Yeah.
Is it about time for our awkward sign-off?
Probably so. The awkward part is me reaching across to get the mouse.
Right.
So that I can...
Something about Banished, something about game economies. I don't know where I'm on camera.
Where's my cursor?
Right now. I don't know.
Where's my cursor?